Hello, this is Christian. In this video, we're looking at the while loop in PHP. So we'll look at the characteristics of the while loop, and then we'll look at the syntax for the while loop structure. I'll be also showing the flow chart for the while loop, what that will look like, and we'll do some coding demo. The while loop has this flow chart structure, which is something you already see in the previous videos. A while loop is what's called a top-controlled loop or a pre-test loop because you test the condition at the top of the loop. And you use a while loop when you know the number of iterations. So that means the number of loop is predetermined or is definite or maybe sometimes it's unknown, like indefinite in the case of an event. And because the loop is tested at the top, it is not guaranteed that the loop will run at all. So that's a possibility. So here's the syntax for the while loop. The keyword while. Inside the parentheses, you have the condition or the expression to test. And then if that is true, you go into the body of the loop and you will execute those statements. And then once that statements are done, then you go back to the condition again. You keep testing that until it's false, and then you exit out of the loop. Here's an example of that. For example, you are trying to just basically print the number for the start variable. And each iteration, you increment the start value so that you will test the start against the max. As long as start is less than or equal to max, you keep printing a statement until it's no longer true. So let's go into the code and do some examples of the while loop. Here in the IDE, I'm using WebStorm again. So I'm going to go to module 5. And let's create a new file, just a PHP file. I'm just call this one here while loop. Okay, so right in here, I don't need all this here. So while loop is very simple. It's the simplest loop of all the 3 or 4 loops there, and pretty much in any language. So again, the syntax would be like while followed by the parentheses and then a pair of curlies to wrap the body of the loop. So inside here, as you can see, my IDE tells me that I need to put something here. It cannot be empty. Okay. So in here, just an expression. Expression will be anything like 5, right? So that is legal. In this case, you do not want to do this because 5 will always be true, and you're gonna run into the issue of the infinite loop. So you don't want to do that. So usually you test something here. Say that you want to count a number from maybe 1 to 10 or 1 to 100, doesn't matter, times, right? So usually you will have a counter of some sort outside the while loop. So I'm going to say count starting from 0, and then inside here you will test the count against some other number. So when be less than or equal to 10. If that is true, right, well, that's still true, then go ahead and execute the code in here. So here I'm just going to echo out the count, and then we'll put a /n. I'm going to print this just to the console, so and then later on we'll do a more practical example. And then just make sure that once you are at the bottom or before you go back to the loop again, you want to update the count. Okay, if you don't do that, then again you're going to run into the issue of the infinite loop, in which you don't ever want to do that. So, so again, you need to have a counter of some sort, or this is called the loop control variable. And once you have a loop control variable created, you need to initialize it. So this is called priming. Okay. Once you prime it, or do prime read, then you can go ahead and test that against a certain value. Here I put number 10, but usually you want to put that into another variable, maybe up here something like, max is equal to 10, and then you put max in here. So try to avoid using constant or numeric values. Okay, so now if I save this and go to my terminal, and then go into the module 5, and just do PHP while loop, and it should print from 1 to 10. Okay, so that's pretty straightforward. Then the reason why we say this is a top control loop and it's not guaranteed that the body of the loop may not run is because you may run into a situation like this. I know I'm just going to put some values so we can see, but usually you may read this from a database or from the user form or something, right? So just say my number is, 20. Okay, if that's the case, then you will see that when I run this statement down here, file, nothing gets printed because it doesn't go into the body of the loop because initially, 20 is not less than or equal to 10. So that is false. Okay, so that is the reason why this is a loop control does not guarantee one iteration. Okay, so now I'm going to do something a little bit more, I guess, exciting, I hope. You can do a nested loop. So let's put this back to 0 again. And inside here, you can have another while loop in here. So let's say that I want to check and to see if the number, if it's, it's less than 10, but of course it meets a certain number. And I can say while the random number between 0 and 10, okay, is equal to the count, which is whatever this count may be. So initially 0, and then I'm going to check the random number until it equals 0. Once that's equal to 0, then I'm going to go in here and say, well, maybe if I say not equal to 0. Yeah, if it equals 0. If it's equal to 0, then I'm going to go in here and terminate the loop prematurely. Okay, so to do that, just put the break command in here. This means to terminate loop prematurely. Okay, so that means you can exit out of the loop here. This is only for this loop here, and then this loop will still run. So it's still going to run 10 times. Okay, so if it tries to run the number, if it matches, then we're going to print something here, and then we'll stop it. So I'm going to say echo, and I'm going to say match, and we'll just terminate that. And we'll see how many times it matches this number, random number here. Okay, it may not match any at all, but we'll find out. So I'm going to go down here, clear my screen, and run it one more time. So you see that I ran it 10 times and nothing gets matched. Okay, so you can try it again, and maybe one of these might hit it. So none gets matched. Try one more time, and I found one. So a number, in this case, it would be a number 9 because it printed right before the before 10. So number 9 match, and so therefore we print that out, and we found one matching number. Okay, so and now this is not really that useful, but just to show you that you can nest a loop inside another loop, and to stop a loop or to exit out of a loop prematurely, you can use the break here to force the loop to terminate. All right, so let's go ahead and do something a little bit more practical. I'm going to go here and close this terminal, and then I'm going to close this one also, and let's create a file. I'm going to go right in here, create a new directory, and we'll call it the while demo. Inside here, we'll create a HTML file. We'll call this one here just test for now. I'm just going to get the data here, basically. Get that here, and then I'm going to create the actual PHP file in here. And we'll just call this one here maybe like users.php. Okay, so like down here, I'm going to display my document down here. So this is the users. And then let's just say that I want to create a very simple form to search for a list of users inside a file. So up here on the page, I can put a form here. Inside the form, I have an input. Just give it a name. Call it user. I'll give it an ID as well, user. And that's going to be the user input. And then I'm going to have an input box. Input for type submit. And give it a name as well, submit. and this will submit the form. So once it submit the form, it's going to take it to itself. So the action here will be to itself, which is case in this case will be just user.php, and the method will be use post. Okay, so we use the post array. So right down here, I'm going to put a div tag, and I'll put the result down here. So maybe something like ID is result, and then down here you put something like this. Maybe I use a variable called result and just display that information down here, right? Okay, and you can wrap this with a H1 if you want, or H2, and just make it look nice and bold. All right, so now when I load this form on the browser, and then what that does is it's gonna call a so when load on the browser, I'm gonna click to submit, put a name there, and submit. The form's gonna come to itself. So up here, I'm going to check the data coming in, and I'll check inside the file, see if it matches a data in there. So let's see what this looks like on the browser. Click here, and this is what it looks like. I have an error because I have a result. This result is not found. It's undefined on line 18, right? I try to put a result here. As you can see, there's nothing created. So in the rule of PHP in most any languages is that you cannot use a variable that has not been defined and set a value. So you have to go up here and set result to an empty string. Okay, if I do that, go back to my browser again and just refresh, now it's happy. So here's my form here. When I do something here, click submit. It's going to check the data, and then we'll put the result information down here. Okay, so very simple application. Okay, so I'm going to go into the code up here, and when you reload this form, you call itself, you want to check to see if the submit button has been clicked, right? Because this going to be all the input fields here will be passed to the post object here, and then you will receive it in the post array. So here I'm going to say if it's set, if the post is set, the post array of the key value called submit, that's important. Okay, this submit here is referring to the name attribute. If you don't have a name attribute, it's not going to work. That's why I put a name here with a user as well in order to get that. ID here, I'm using that for a different purpose, usually for like styling or for a JavaScript interaction. So I'm going to check that submit. If it's been clicked, that means go ahead and run the code in here. Otherwise, it won't do anything, right? So just to show you, I can say echo, well, not echo, but we can say, for example, result is yay, something like that. So you can see in the screen. So if I save this, go back to the browser and refresh my screen. Okay, I click something, right? It's been clicked. So as you can see, if I put something here, I click, and it shows the information here. Okay. All right. So once we click the data, it comes back in here, and I want to get the input for the user. So I'm going to have a variable here called user is equal to the post get the user field, get the value. That's what it means. And I might put a space around it. And there might be empty spaces. What I meant was say there might be a space character, so you want to trim it. Just make sure there's no, it removes all the white space. Once I get that, then I need to read a file. And of course, we're not going to cover this in the class, but I'm just showing you anyway how to read a file from a server. So we're here on the demo. I'm going to create a new file, just a text file. We'll call it users.txt. And I just put some user in here. So user 1, user 2, user 3, user 10, 10, user 15, user 22. Okay, save that file. And then over here, now to read files, you basically call the fopen command. So I'm going to say file is going to be fopen. And you have here the file name. The file name is just basically just called users.txt. It's the same directory, so just put the same directory. If it's for in a different directory, you would say maybe like data dash / something something. Okay, So I'm going to call that here, and the method or the mode for this file to be open, either to read it, to write it, or to read and write, and so forth. So we're just going to read it, so I'll put the R here, R for read. Okay. So once I open the file, usually you can say if it's not there, you die and so forth. But I'm not going to do that here. Once I read that, then you can then use a while loop here. The while loop is used to read the file from the top of the file all the way to the end of the file. You can read it line by line, and that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to read each file, each line. Once I found matching data, then I can stop there and terminate the loop. Because I don't want to, if I found 2, there's no point in going all the way to the end of that list, right? So you want to put another special variable to stop that. So that means up here somewhere, I'm going to have a control. Maybe I'll call it found, right? When found is true, now stop. But initially it will be false. So I'll say here, I'll say when found is false. You can do that, right? Or you can just put the not in front. When found is false, that is equivalent to just saying like that. Okay, so if it's false, and if it's not the end of the file. So again, we'll put the not here, and to get the end of the file, there is a FEOF, that means file end of file, and then the file name is the file we just created up here. So it's going to read opens the text file using the read mode. It's going to start reading from the top of the file here, line by line, and then while it reads that every single line, we're going to check it. Okay, we're going to check to see if it's equal to the user's text here. So I put a user here, right? We read it from the form. So then down here you can say, I need to read that file. To read it, you have to do the fget string. So I'll put here, just put like a record here is equal to fget. Okay, fget means string. The S for string, the C is a character, and so forth. Okay, so I'm getting the file from the file. It's going to read line by line, and then I can compare the record against the user. So here we put if block. So if, again, you probably want to put a trim here as well. So you can say, trim and remove any white space in there. Okay, so I can say now if record equals the user, if that is true, then I want to say found is true. Otherwise, just ignore it and keep going. Okay, and then once I'm done with the loop outside here, then you always want to close that file stream. So close the file. Once I'm done with that, I can check the condition of the found variable. If it's true, because once it's true, it will pause, it will stop the loop because this condition will be evaluated. And if it's true, then both of these are no longer true, so therefore it will exit out of the loop, right? So we're done. And then finally down here, we're going to check the result. So I'm going to say result is equal to, so you can say like if found is true, right? Again, if found is true, you can do that. Or just making sure to say if found, just like that. Okay, is it true the value variable? If it's true, then you can say result is equal to, you can say yay, something like, and then user, the username you enter is found, put a dot here. And I put another one over here, else. Sorry, user doesn't exist. Something like that. Okay, so let's save that. And then we're going to go into the browser again and run that file, run that form. So we're going to go here and just do a reload. It's going to say no because initially it's still loading. Something's wrong here. And we'll do it again. Oh yeah, it's no longer the same place. So let's try one more time. Okay, this is the correct one. Okay, so if I click just something, it should say not found, and it's not doing something correctly. So let's see what's going on. Okay. Okay, users. Yeah, I think it's plural for the users text. Okay, make sure that it matches my file name. Didn't tell me that, but I think that was the error. All right, so let's do one more time and reload, and it should load the previous data. So we can say that whatever I type was not found. Okay, so if I put here a user 1, it should be in there, right? So it should say, yay, there it is, we found it. So user 5, okay, it's not in there. User 15 was in there, I saw earlier, right, when we typed it. And there you go. So you can use it for this scenario, and the data could be coming from a form, and or it could be coming from a database. So usually you check that against the database, do a query, and check to see if the user is in there. So it's especially useful for login and things like that. All right. So one final fix, and I'll just end the video here. So this part here, again, this is redundant. I should say redundant. It's just a lot of typing. So you can do is you can rewrite this using the Elvis operator or the ternary operator. You can say something like this: result is equal to found. If that is true, then go ahead and return this part, right? Else return this part. And we don't need that semicolon there. So in this case, you don't need this part here. And I'll just let it. It's a lot of typing here still, but it's shorter. Okay, and so if I save this and run it again, it should still be the same. Just another way to rewrite your code. All right, so this is just one example of how a while loop can be used in PHP.